283 properties and still complaining. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your $1 coffee, hashtag not sponsored, while you still can, and let's have a look at this one article talking about a greedy landlord, boo hiss, with 283 properties. Now, let's have a look at this because there's a few things I want to point out here. I mean, okay, good on him for building a portfolio up to 283 properties. I mean, he's providing accommodation to that many families. So that's a service that he's providing to people. But anyway, so apparently greed. It's always greed, isn't it? Man with 283 rental properties lashed after claiming he can't afford a rental freeze. Now, this is alluding to calls from the Greens, and we'll go through this in detail in another video, for a rent freeze. Now, they have that in New York. They have rent control. It doesn't work. It leads to a black market of subletting at higher rates. It does not work, and it disincentivizes the supply. It stops people building and investing in rental properties. It stops people maintaining rental properties. It's a bad thing, okay? It is not a good policy. It's a bad economic policy, and the fact that you have politicians recommending this is shocking. It just shows their lack of understanding of reality, and perhaps maybe people need to be a bit more sensible before they vote for someone who only has experience as a shop steward and is still under 30 to get into parliament. Okay, just suggesting that. Maybe that's a boomer take. Maybe we need to make go back to the Roman days. Only 31-year-olds can vote. But anyway, let's have a look at this. So, radio host Ben Fordham was stunned this morning, so a couple of days ago, after a caller revealed he had a staggering 283 rental properties to his name, but still couldn't afford to help out tenants doing it tough. I mean, here's the thing. Owning this many properties isn't cheap. You've got to maintain them. You've got to pay fees to your real estate agents here in Queensland. Now you've got to pay to have yearly inspections for the smoke detectors. All of these costs are just burdens are being placed on landlords. So in some regards, if rent wasn't as expensive, it makes sense. The whole approach of renting and investing in something else. But anyway, a listener identified only as David called into Sydney Radio 2GB on Thursday to discuss a new push by the Greens to roll out a nationwide 2-year freeze on rent increases to try to ease pressure on tenants given the current cost of living crisis. See, what's going to happen if you put a freeze for 2 years? We're already going to have an issue with supply of housing in this country because builders that have been overheated by the bloody government intervention stimulating the housing sector are falling over. So there's going to be an issue with supply. We're going to have increased number of students coming over. Again, it's going to return, even if it returns to normal, it's going to be pressure. And you've got labour increasing the immigration intake. So for all of that, there's going to be more demand on the rentals. But then if you're locking rents at 2 years, there's going to be less incentive for people to invest in there. Don't they understand what they're doing? They're just making more of a bloody mess. Rents are out of control, Green Housing spokesman Max Chandler Mather said of the proposal. I mean, the Greens can say any old bullshit and it'll never happen, but then the problem is it'll influence labour. That's the danger. Millions of Australian renters are struggling to pay the rent, and unless the government wants to see more families sleeping in their cars, they need to do their job and act now to stop this crisis boiling over into a national tragedy. Well, the question is, what have the local councils do to make it easier for people to build homes? Okay? What about all the not in my backyard crowds? What about the Greens councillor here in Brisbane stopping or arguing to stop a development just because it happens to be near Aboriginal area down in Ipswich? Low-cost, affordable housing for people. And getting all the Brisbanean people in his bloody constituent with multi-million-dollar houses ringing up to complain. Okay? That's the not in my backyard crowd. That's affecting supply. I've talked to investors who will intentionally vote for parties that agitate against development, against densification. It's insane. Here's the thing. Here's the harsh reality of it. If you want to do the best thing for the environment, okay, from a carbon footprint and environmental impact, you need to increase density in the cities. It's just that simple. I know you all want your quarter-acre block. Those are harder to come by now. We're not living in the 80s anymore, guys. You've got to move further out for that. According to recent PropTrack data, total rental listings are now almost a third lower than pre-pandemic levels nationally, increasing competition, and with properties being leased in record timing. I was talking to a mate tonight, having a good catch-up, and he just bought a new house, a lovely property in acreage, and what he's saying, we're on the lease and they're renting. They've got until December. We'll take it easy and just, relaxed moving in. Nope, someone came in, said, I'll take it. You got 2 weeks. So, boom, all of a sudden his relaxed move has turned into a bloody nightmare. I feel sorry for him, but we've all been there. So there's demand. Low supply and demand surging, rents are continuing to rise, up 8% compared to just 12 months ago. This morning, David went to on air to offer a landlord's perspective, but left the radio host speechless when he confirmed just how huge his property portfolio actually was. Well, I mean, why? Just because you have 283 properties as opposed to having, 10 properties, you're probably going to have more costs in managing this. It's a full-time job. I'm a landlord, I do the right thing by my tenants. I don't jack up the rent every chance that I get, he began. Okay, good. But the thing that people must remember, these people that are renting, and that when you work, you have super. Super pays about 9.5%. I don't have a super. Well, okay, that's his own choice, but anyway. David claimed that for that reason he couldn't afford a rental freeze. He did not reveal whether he had a job or any other income streams beside his investment portfolio. It sounds like, 283 properties. Maybe he's one of the guys doing the courses on property, on investing. My rental income, back to me, last year was 3.1%. That's what I earned, he continued. Now, that's not that much, honestly, a 3.1%. Yeah, I mean, it's typical for property. But I don't know, guys. Australians here, we're obsessed with property. But you got to put the money in the housing. You've got to maintain the housing. You've got all the costs to deal with it. I guess you're banking on capital growth as the main reason. But for an income stream, why not shares? Why not some ETFs that pay monthly dividends that can reach that or even surpass that without any of the bullshit and the hassle? Is that just... You tell me in the comments, guys. Is that just not as popular here in Australia because we're all so property addicted? What about the FIRE people? How many of them are doing that? I guess it's not really something talked about on TV. No TV shows about dividend investing, none of that stuff. So now they want to freeze on that. Are the local, state and federal governments going to freeze on their incomes? Because the Queensland government charged me 2.25% land tax, so I'm paying nearly $7,000 a property per year in land tax. Just think about that. $7,000 a year in property. So the media, the Greens, bashes the evil landlords. But it's the government. Okay? It's the government taxing this money up, hoovering it up to pay these politicians to make these stupid suggestions. It's a loop of stupidity. It's maybe we could harness that, hey? Fordham then asked exactly how many properties David owned and was momentarily speechless when he admitted the number was just shy of 300, with the caller insisting he had worked hard for that and bought his first property at the age of just 17. But did he start at Macca's? Maybe he did. Maybe he did. And he probably did work bloody hard for it. He also claimed to have frozen rents during COVID and said that the portfolio was managed on his behalf by real estate agents. That's another cost. Fordham clarified that he was not begrudging you for one slight moment and revealed he was a landlord himself who had invested in the property market, but he questioned whether there was a need to be realistic about how many properties were too many. Why? Why? We want to be in a free bloody market, a free civilization where people, if they want to acquire 283 properties, let him do it. He's providing homes for 283 people. And it's his responsibility to maintain those homes for those people. That's a lot of home for one person to own. That's the system we've got in place. But you wonder whether that's really in the interest of everyone in Australia struggling to get into a home, Fordham said in response. He's not to blame with this. You need to increase supply. The issue has caused a stir on 2GB social media sites. And while many listeners support David in his success, others accuse him of being greedy. This is the tall poppy bloody syndrome here in Australia, hacking at people down. I mean, come on. Sure, I really hope he's diversified his portfolio so he's got a shitload of money in shares and a shitload of money in businesses and other things. So it's not all in property. But maybe it's just his caper. He just loves property. Maybe that's his thing. I think once you pass a certain number of property, it's essentially an unofficial business you're running. Well, no, it is a business he's running. He's providing housing for people. My opinion is anything in excess of 4 properties plus your primary should need to register as a business and be taxed as such, one Facebook user posted. Well, I mean, just put them all in a trust and then why do you want to tax it as a business? What's the difference? That's why people can't afford to buy and have to pay $500 to $800 rent for a house that they could pay $300 to $400 mortgage on another attic. No, it's not. I mean, here's the thing. This is the problem we have here in Australia. We're a bunch of babies running to the government whenever there was anything that we don't want to be our responsibility for. We want more legislation, more rules, more costs, and then you wonder why everything's so damn expensive. The BCA, the Building Code of Australia, has just had its biggest revision ever in the history of the document. And there's more conditions placed on the construction of housing that's going to inflate the cost. There needs to be limits on residential properties. All it does is drive up demand and prices. We can't afford to live another road. Another posted, with all the negative gearing tax breaks he must receive, while we're all paying out our backsides to subsidise his greed. Well, the government wants the negative gearing tax breaks to encourage investment in property. That's what it's for. Okay? It's encouraging investment in these properties, guys. So let's have a talk about this. Now, the proposal for a 2-year rent freeze by the Greens is insane. It is ludicrous. It's embarrassing that we have elected officials that even propose that. It just shows you the state of Australia's education system, where people are putting that forward as a legitimate proposal. The issue is, for our housing, it's supply. It's supply. Supply is going to get even screwed more. Okay, there's all this concern about demand and forcing people to only own so many houses. Then what they'll do is they'll just start up 50 businesses and own it all under that. Okay, that's just stupid. You need to make it easier for people to build. You need to get rid of the not in my backyard mentality we have in this country. We need to get rid of the tall poppy syndrome that we have here. And we need to reduce the red tape and bullshit that you take to build a house. One I would suggest is reduce significantly the energy assessment requirements for a house. The house I've got now, 100 years old. It's fine. I can live in it. It doesn't have all the environmental bells and whistles as modern houses, but I don't need that, do I? It should be up to the individual if they choose to add those extra costs and burdens to their house. Here in Queensland, you've got to have an energy bloody star rating done. That's a report. That costs money. You've got to pay someone to do some bloody paperwork. What value does that add to anything? Nothing. It's literally a bullshit job to make people feel good. And people bullshit all the bloody modelling for that anyway. I tell you, discovering that when I was a student, seeing how they could just tweak the model to completely change the figures made me really skeptical about a lot of the modelling that's been done for long-term economic and environmental predictions. So, anyway, guys, I mean, good on him for providing homes for that many people. We need to get more supply on the market. That's the issue. This Greens proposal is insane. We'll look at it in greater detail in another video. It's just getting me angry. But I guess that's the Greens. Maybe people need to learn why it's been so long since you've had Labor, a Greens coalition, pretty much. Anyway, check out my other channels, HeiseBim and HeiseSays International, where you can find other videos I do on a variety of topics. HeiseBim is technology and software I use, and HeiseSays International is more international news. If you want to support the channel, there are a few ways you can. You can support us on YouTube or Patreon. Use our affiliate links on Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband. buy a pocket squares or call us if you need an architect. Take care, everyone. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now. 2-year rent freeze. Hey, at least they're not calling for lockdowns of people to keep rents cheaper. Oh boy.